Here we go.
Do it.
Okay, cool.
Here we go.
Welcome back to Coffin Talking, spooky season, where we unravel the mysteries, embrace the peculiar, and find humor in the unconventional world of funerals and death. I'm here with Frank.
Hi, Holly.
Hi.
How's it going?
It's going well. I was just saying, I just came around the corner of my bed and I gashed my arm on the dresser, the edge of the dresser.
So you showed me the scratch, and I think you followed it up with, "Look, Dad, I'm bleeding out."
Yes, that is what I followed it up with. It's not actually bleeding.
I don't see any blood at all, but well, okay. All right. Okay.
I'm bleeding out.
Yeah, that's an emergency. Call 911, Holly.
Oh, man.
Mm-hmm.
So how was your week?
It's been okay. I'm not, it's been really weird. For this last week, I've had a lot of calls, not for deaths, but to see if I can help them find someone that has passed away and where they went.
What?
Yeah, exactly. That's what I said. I thought I rolled my eyes.
Someone in their family passed away?
Yes.
And they're wondering where they went?
Yes. Can you help me find them? Can you help me find the location where the mortuary they went to?
What the crap?
I said, well, why don't you give me the name of the deceased? So they did. I said, yeah, she's not with me. Well, can you help me find her?
I don't know if you know how this works, but...
No, I give them whatever information I can. I find out if they died at home, they're probably under hospice care. If they died at home under suspicious, I guess under unattended death is what we'd call it, 6 months without a doctor's attendance, then they're probably at the medical examiner's office. But I just, I just took one this morning again, and this was my third this week. And I rolled my eyes and I thought, what the heck is going on?
That is so strange.
Is my website changed to funeral information through our mortuary only?
Oh my gosh.
It was weird. It's been weird. It's been weird. So
weird.
That's been kind of my week.
So is there like a database with everyone who has passed away recently? How do you even find out where they passed away?
Yeah. So the person that, for instance, these two here are parents. One of them was a parent, one was a sibling, and the other one was a sibling. And so they're all looking for, I guess they were haphazardly calling mortuaries in the area in which they lived to just see if they were brought into our care. And so, yeah, when they're not in our care, the next question is, well, can you help me find her or him or
what the?
Oh, so of course my next question is, did they die at home or did they die in the hospital?
Right.
Because if they died in a hospital, all you have to do is really call the hospital. They have what's called an HRRF form, and they can go ahead and tell you where they released the individual to.
Yeah.
So that's what I tell them. But it's been really weird. It's been kind of odd for me to field those kind of calls and try and have someone explain to me, I need your help because I know you're not the funeral home. Okay. Well, since you're not the funeral home, can you still help me find my sister?
Yeah, what the heck?
My brother, my daughter. Oh, and so you try and be nice because if they don't like the funeral home they went to, you hope they call you back, right?
Right.
And just say, you were so kind in helping us out. We'd like to have her moved to you. Okay. No. Fantastic. But no, very seldom happens. But I
have a reason to talk to you.
Yeah, but I will never turn away someone requesting help. So.
That is so weird.
Yeah. Anyway, that's it. That's been kind of my week, kind of a strange week. But that's okay. It's all good. What about yours?
Mine's been fine.
Except for the gash this morning.
Except for the gash.
Hold up the bandage. Is it bleeding through? Coffiner, she's holding up her arm, and I don't see I'm not even seeing a Band-Aid on it, just so you know.
It's a pretty big gash. I'm a war hero.
Fantastic. I don't want to know what war. Okay.
It's been a good week. One thing that I am trying to get over is I'm trying to stop biting my nails.
Oh.
Because they were so beautiful yesterday and now they're all nubs.
Why were they beautiful yesterday? Had you kept that goal and they were looking really nice? Did you have them manicured or what?
No, I never get manicures anymore because they're too expensive, but I love them. Mm-hmm. So, but when I say they're beautiful, because I always bite my nails, it's literally just you can see the whites of my nails. Like what? The white part.
Yeah.
On top.
Yeah.
I don't know what that's called. You can see it because that means I haven't bit them for a while.
Okay, good. Oh, that's good. So show me what they look like right now.
Oh, no.
Well, they aren't that bad. At least you're curving.
They're pretty bad.
At least you're curving the cuticle or the nail.
Yeah, that's where I rip it down.
Why do you bite your nails? I'm going to tell you a story. I used to bite my nails too, and then now I have a hard time cutting them because every once in a while, and you'll notice this when we're together, and it's just a reminder to me that I'm no longer biting my nails, and so I like to keep them as not. It's weird. I don't like to keep them overly long, but they are longer than what they really should be. And then the FL one will remind me, Frank, it's time to cut your nails. And
but it's almost like a little victory, right?
That's exactly the way I looked at it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a little victory. And you'd be ashamed at my toenails right now, Holly, if you...
Oh, no. I know about your toenails.
If you saw them. I'm not as limber as I used to be, and
Just takes too much work.
Yeah. Okay. Mm-hmm.
So, coffiners, if you have any tricks to stop biting nails, let me know.
Yeah. I heard cayenne pepper works well, or even a chili sauce or chili oil.
Yeah.
You put that on your nails in the morning, and as soon as you start to try and bite them, then you get that shot of heat, I guess.
That would probably work in reverse order for you.
Mm-hmm.
You would go back for the heat.
I like the heat.
Yeah. But I went so far as I had a dream last night that all of my close friends in my life had beautiful nails, and I looked down and mine were just disgusting and nubs. So
I have to tell you, Mom was laughing her head off last night over a reel. Maybe she sent it to you. A reel that she found with four little kids. I mean, it was 4 little kids in a boat floating down a river. And all of a sudden they were taking just a picture of them, the little kids enjoying the river, running down the river. Yeah. And all of a sudden a fish jumps out of the water, goes across and fin slaps all of the kids.
Oh my gosh. And then all of them?
All of them. And they all start crying and screaming. And the fish lands on the other side of the boat in the water. Mom
slaps all of them.
Fin slaps. It's the funniest thing. And so when we were going to bed last night, I just kind of leaned over to her and just did a little fin slap on her with my hand, and she just broke into laughter again. It was hilarious.
Gosh.
It was hilarious.
That's so funny.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll have to check.
She'll send it to you, I'm sure.
I'm sure she did.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, that's so funny. Well, I think that wraps up our weeks. So do you want to be Frank?
Let's do it.
Okay, let's.
Okay. So this story today revolves around a young lady by the name of Sharon. And Sharon was a construction worker, and she loved working construction. She'd worked it for close to 12 years by the time this story had been told. And she had many friends that were in the construction business and knew it inside and out, so she thought. The part of the story that actually comes into play, which becomes a little disheartening for Sharon, is that on one of her jobs, she looked across the street and there was a man in a trench coat that was just standing there staring at her. She thought to herself, well, this is new. I wonder what he's looking at. And so she just continued working. And at about an hour and a half later, she stopped for lunch. And as she found herself positioned on an I-beam to have her lunch, she just happened to take a bite of her sandwich, look across the yard or the field where she was working, and there stood the same man. And only this time he was much closer than he was before. And so she continued eating. She didn't really think much about it. And she thought maybe it was the owner of the building that they were constructing, and that maybe he was just kind of off-site, but on-site, looking and making sure that everything was being constructed in a pleasing manner to him. Well, a couple of days went by when she was introduced to a new worker, and his name was Rick. Now, Rick was a little bit different because he stood about 6'4". He didn't look like any type of a construction worker that she'd ever seen before. Or at least his mannerisms didn't act like a construction worker, where he seemed to know what he was doing, but he did not. And Sherry was actually put in charge of mentoring him and having him work under her tutelage so that she could go ahead and help him along the way and kind of help him understand how her boss wanted work to be done. So that's fine. But in the course of their conversations, and just as working side by side, they started to learn a lot about each other. For instance, Rick would find out that Sherry no longer had, or that she had a boyfriend, but the boyfriend was not a sentimental one. And he didn't really like to do things for holidays. And so she knew that because Valentine's was coming up, that nothing would happen to her. Nothing would happen for her from him. And so Rick, being attentive as he is, he just kind of let that go in one ear, and he processed it and continued talking. And then he found out that Sherry had been in legal problems before, and that she was having to work as hard as she could in construction so that she didn't have to live paycheck to paycheck. And so she was looking for all the overtime that she could get. Well, with those two pieces of information, Rick began to have information that he probably should not have been entitled to. And so on Valentine's Day, on the morning of Valentine's Day, Rick approached Sherry, and he just said, "Hey, how's it going? I hope happy Valentine's Day, and I hope everything works out for you and is good. And I got this for you." And he hands her a package. In the package is a little monkey with that claps the tambourines.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
Okay, so you know what I'm talking about. You can wind them up, they just sit there on a shelf, and they, with their big googly eyes and psychedelic eyes, and they're clapping, and you think they're smiling, but they're not really not. They're really not. They're wanting to kill you.
Oh my!
No, and so anyway, this
monkey is the murderer.
And so this is what she was given. And she looks at Rick and she said, "Oh, thank you. That was very, very thoughtful." And on this monkey, he had pinned a heart, like a pillow, a small little pillow-shaped heart onto the monkey. And on the Valentine, it said, "Be mine." Now, Rick was kind of shocked when Sherry said, after her thank yous and everything, she just, throughout the day, she'd keep looking at the monkey. And at the end of the day, she just looked at Rick, and she had the monkey in her hands, and she says, "I can't accept this. I'm sorry." Because she was dating another guy, right? And so she didn't want to affect that relationship at all. So Rick was a little offended, but he took the monkey back and found out a little bit more about Sherry with regards to what they were going to do that evening. And then really nothing was happening. And so he comes up with a gift card, and he hands it to her, and he says, "I'd like you and your boyfriend to go out to dinner." And she looks at him and she says, "Well, I can't accept this either unless you have one for everyone of the crew."
Right.
And he said, "Well, I don't." And so she just cautiously took his hand and pushed it back towards his chest and said, "Thank you. The thought was very kind, but I can't accept." So he, after that day's work, he didn't really say anything to Sherry after that. After that one particular day, he just went back to his truck, got into his truck, and drove off. Sherry just thought, well, usually he says goodbye when he's leaving. And so she said, "I probably offended him, and well, we'll get over it. We'll work it out tomorrow." Well, about 4 hours later, she gets this text. The text says, "Hi, Sherry. It's Rick. Just letting you know that I'm thinking about you this evening."
Oh, no, Rick.
Oh, Rick. Oh, yeah. And so she goes, well, she thinks that's kind of weird, but she's with her boyfriend at the time. And the boyfriend said, "Who's that from?" She goes, some guy that I've been starting to mentor at work, his name's Rick, and he just sent me this text. And she holds it to him, and he looks at it and goes, oh boy, you've got a stalker. And she looks at him and goes, no, I do not. And he goes, yeah, you do. This is how it begins. Well,
oh my.
Sure. And she looks at her boyfriend. Why, have you been a stalker?
How do you know the signs?
Yeah. But she didn't really think much about it, kind of put it in the back of her mind, and she's continued having an evening with her boyfriend. And then their evening consisted of a meal that she had made and then just sitting and watching a movie. So the evening came and gone, but about 2 a.m, she gets another text. And the text says, hey, Sherry, Rick again. Just thinking about you. I can't understand why you didn't respond to my last text.
Oh my gosh. At 2 a.m?
At 2 a.m.
Oh.
And so she hears when she hears her message bing, she knows that she thought that maybe there was an emergency at the work site that she needed to be to. And so she hurried and opened it up, and sure enough, it was him. And she thought, oh my gosh, I can't do this. And so the next day at work, she approached Rick and she said, Rick, don't text me. You can't text me. And the next time you text me, I'm going to block you.
Mm-hmm.
And she said, it's just not professional. Well, this went on for about 4 or 5 days. And so, and then she received a barrage of texts, 5, 6, 7 texts, and she immediately blocked him. And so, on the job site, and this was during work hours. And so she looked over at him while the job was going on, and she just kind of raised her hands and shook her head like, what are you doing? And right. He continued working, and he just smiled, and he just looked at where he was working and continued working. He, when she got home, she had found that it had gotten so bad in just so you know, that her boyfriend had left her because she wasn't doing anything about it. She had just thought that, this would all take care of itself. And so
the boyfriend broke up with her?
Yes.
Oh my gosh.
Over jealousy. And so she had already knew that he wouldn't be there, but she turns and goes home to an empty house. On the job site, there was another female worker that she became very good friends with. And now Sharon, who is called Sherry, had asked this friend to move in with her to kind of set the tone of being calm and relaxed and not feeling so anxious that maybe around any given
not being
corner
alone.
that Rick might be there.
Mm-hmm.
So the friend, Pamela, we'll call her Pamela, she moved in, and she started recognizing the problem that she was having, and that was that now notes were being left on the house. No more messages by phone, but notes were now being left on the house, which meant that Rick knew where she lived. And on one particular evening, she decided to go visit some family members when she was driving down the road and looked in the rearview mirror, and there in the rear view mirror was a truck. And she said, is that Rick? She's thinking to herself, is that Rick? Because here it is kind of in a dusk type time where it's that time between almost immediate darkness and just a little bit of shade. And so she can make out the truck, no lights on the vehicles yet, but she starts to speed up and she says, well, I'll just see if he's following me. And so she makes a left-hand turn where she doesn't normally make the turn. And she waited and no truck. Oh, okay, good. So she pulls back onto the main drive, and she keeps going down the road, looks in her rearview mirror, and there again is this truck. And she goes, I've got to stop. So she hurried as fast as she could and got to her uncle's place. And she jumped out of the truck and she ran just as fast as she could to the uncle's house and started rapping on the door and opened it, realized that the door was open. So she just walked in, and she was frantically telling her uncle about what was transpiring and that there was someone behind her. And she thinks it's this guy named Rick. And as soon as the uncle heard about it, he grabbed a shotgun and he walks outside. And just as he walks outside with a shotgun, in pulls Rick's truck.
Pulled into the driveway?
Pulled it. Now, this was a rural area of Kentucky. And so when you say you pulled into the driveway, it's not really in the driveway, but there's a huge area where vehicles could park. Okay. So he pulls into this area. And I think it kind of caught Rick off guard, because I don't think he realized that he would be right at the house when he pulled into this area behind the seclusion of trees. Yeah. All of a sudden he's right there. And the uncle lowers or levels the gun at the door or at the windshield. And he said, "Hey, you're trespassing. Get off the property." And he gets out of the car and he said, "Is Sherry here?" It's none of your business. Get off the property. And he says, "Well, I just need to talk to her. She doesn't want to talk to you. Is your name Rick?" And he said, "Yeah." And he said, "She doesn't want to talk to you. She has no reason to talk to you." And he goes, "Well, I just wanted to clarify some things." He said, "Yeah, the clarification that is right now." And he cocked the gun. He said, is
That's all you need to know.
Is sitting right here in my hands. Please get off the property." And so Rick, feeling a little ashamed, got back into his car and drove away. Well, Sherry thought everything was done. Everything had been handled and taken care of. She had since, it had been weeks. She'd found another guy that she really liked. So she was starting to date him and was not completely honest to him about what had been transpiring between she and Rick, because he was noticing envelopes in Sherry's mailbox that had just Sherry's name on it. No return address, no nothing else, just Sherry's name. And it was in the mailbox. And so he finally confronted Sherry, and she finally opened up after 2 or 3 weeks with this gentleman. And he was the type where he just couldn't deal with it. He couldn't deal with that. And so he went on, he said, this is a volatile situation. This could go sideways real fast. And so he went on ahead. He left her as well. Sherry now has 2 boyfriends that left her because of the actions of Rick. Now Rick was pretty ingenious, so he got another phone, right? So a new number, and he started texting Sherry again. And this time Sherry was in a parking lot of a Wally World, let's say, and she was waiting for her friend, his friend Pamela, to come out of her place of work, her second job, and kind of wait to get her into the car so they could go home together. Yeah. Well, she was looking at this barrage of messages, and the first one she looked at made her panic stricken. It said, "Sherry, why aren't you answering me? Why are you avoiding me? Why won't you talk to me?" And then there was a string of like 15 or 20 messages behind that. And she just started opening them up, and she started to breathe really hard, and she started to cry when she heard the door open, and she thought it was her friend. And she was still looking at these messages. And before she realized what had happened, Rick was now in the passenger seat, and he had a knife at her belly.
Oh my gosh.
He didn't cut her, but the knife was pressed so deep into her belly that she did start to bleed. And so she started to scream, and he says, all you need to do is be my friend. That's all I want, is you to be my friend. And he said, "Here, I want you to have this." And he hands her this envelope full of cash. Now the cash, he said, the cash is for all of the legal issues that you're having. I want to help pay for those. And she looked down, and here the knife is still in her belly. She looks down at this envelope, and she says, "I can't take this," because in her mind, she's thinking, well, if I take this, now I'm locked into him, because now I'm obligated to do whatever he would want me to do. I can't do that. I can't be there for him like he wants me to be. And she just kind of casually pushed the envelope back. And as she did that, she felt the knife go tighter or deeper into her side. And just then the door opened, and she said, "Excuse me, you're in my seat. Get out of this car." And it was her friend Pamela. And Pamela finally had saved the day. And Sherry was crying. Her head was hunched over the windshield, and Rick got out, and he threatened Pamela with a knife. And Pamela said, "Don't you threaten me with that knife. I'll take you down faster than a blink of an eye."
Oh, I like Pamela.
Yeah. And so he said, "Yeah, whatever." So he sheathes the knife, and he gets back to his truck, and he drives away. And she gets in, sits down, and she says, Is that the guy?" She said, "Yes, this is the guy that's been bothering me all this time." And so that you go just a little bit back into the backstory, she never went back to work. Sherry didn't.
Sherry?
She took a 2-week notice, a leave for her vacation, which she was just trying to get her life back in order. And so she doesn't know if Rick continued to work there or not, but she took the 2-week leave. And after the 2 weeks, she just ended up quitting because she couldn't go back into that environment. So that being said, she and Pamela start to go back to the house. Now let's go forward 6 years. 6 years had passed. and nothing with Rick, nothing, no problems at all. Sherry had found a man that she loved and ended up marrying. They had one child. And as she was returning home from picking him up from daycare, she received a text, not really thinking anything about it. The text said, "Hi, I think you know who this is. I know where you live. I know where you work. It's far from over." And so she panic stricken once again, not because of the time frame that had elapsed, nothing had happened, right?
Right.
So she thought that maybe he was arrested, maybe he had gone to jail, maybe he decided to just move on, do something different. And she realizes that now she has to tell her husband about what's going on because this is going to start all over again. So he makes an appearance at the door. She gets home, unloads the child, and she starts to make dinner when she hears a rap at the door. A knock at the door. She goes to the door and there's no way of looking. She doesn't have a peephole or anything. It's still countryside, so they trust most everybody. So she just opens the door and there stands Rick.
Oh my gosh.
Now Rick opens up his jacket and shows her that he in fact has a gun. And so the first thing that she could do, and the only thing she thought of doing, was she thought about her son. And she hurried backwards into the house and she slammed the door and ran to the phone, called 911. By the time Rick had actually entered into the house, 911, or the police officers were noted and on her property. So they had broken into the house too with the gun pointed right at Sherry's head and was ready to shoot Sherry when the cops intervened and stopped him from doing that. They arrested him on the spot. Again, she thought everything was going to be okay. He left, of course, being arrested. She followed the case and he was sentenced to 2 years. And so with that sentencing, she could finally take a breath and sigh of relief. Everything's going to be fine. Everything's going to be fine. About a year later, she was returning home again after picking her son up from the care center, and was driving up the driveway and got her son out of the car and was walking towards the house. And on the porch, she heard a very funny and faint noise, and it was a monkey.
Oh my gosh.
Clapping with a heart attached to its chest saying, "Be mine."
A year later?
That's it. Yeah. This whole thing spanned over 10 years.
Oh my gosh.
According to this story.
Oh, I hate that.
Mm-hmm. So what do you think she did? You think she finally that's what I would do.
100%. Yeah.
What can you do? Anyway.
Oh, that is so terrifying how someone can just come into your life and completely turn it upside down.
Mm-hmm. It is. It's sad and scary and totally to the point where you just don't know anymore what people are capable of doing.
I know.
And I thought of this story only because it's so true to life. It can happen at any time. And the other reason is that individuals that think that it can't happen to them, if you actually liken or think about what's happening in your own life, chances are, to a point, you've probably been stalked at some point or another. And something just has to break that stalk mentality for them to stop stalking you.
Right.
Whatever it is, something has to happen, whether it's someone else they focus on or maybe a new job, move, whatever. But yeah, and I know that we could have built on this story a little bit more, but I just think you got the gist of what could happen with stalkers.
And I think it is, to that point, it is really sad that this happens so often, because even as you were talking, I was thinking about like, oh, this sort of thing, or this event happened in my life and this event happened in my life. And if it escalated, it could have been much worse.
You're right. Yeah.
Yeah. I think that it's sad that it's a relatable story for most people.
Mm-hmm. And, again, coffiners, it's just a story. And, if we make it sound like it's life, true to life, then it served its purpose. But it is just a story. But it's a story that all too often happens. And you see I guess in my line of work, I've seen individuals, both male and female, that have been killed by a stalker. And
Oh.
so it's not, I guess a lot of these stories have a little bit of base in reality, but please remember they are just stories. They're just stories.
Oh man.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, they're just stories, but it's a good reminder that you should always be aware.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And I think even with the subject of this podcast as a whole, we're typically focusing on things post-death.
Yeah.
And sort of supernaturally things.
Yeah.
But sometimes the scariest things are just stories like this.
Yeah. The true to life ones that actually you could actually, oh my gosh, you could see yourself being put in that position.
Mm-hmm.
So it does become a little scary.
Yeah.
A little more eye-opening. So,
yeah, definitely.
And coffiners, those of you with children, those of you that have grandchildren, oh my gosh. I used to do a thing called escape school. Do you remember that, Holly?
I do remember that,
When I used to go to elementary schools, and talk to children about different ways of being able to escape an abductor. And I think it holds true with adults as well. And if we ever want to do an episode on escapes, we can do that. We can different ways of escaping or putting yourself out of harm's way is good. The main message in that particular program is to listen to children, because if they're telling you something, chances are most children won't lie to you. They'll actually tell you the truth, and their feelings are genuine. And so they're not muffled or shaded by anything else, but they're like, say, Mom, I don't feel comfortable around that guy. There's a reason. And so that should throw your antenna up about that guy. So yeah, just kind of keep that in mind. But yeah, this is one that I've thought about ever since we were thinking of doing something like this for the month of October. And yeah, hopefully people will learn from it. And it's not meant to be scary, but it's meant to be true to heart, and know that it could definitely happen at any one given time. And I think it is haunting in its own way.
Yeah, it is. It is. But I mean, I don't know, just stay alert.
Mm-hmm. Exactly,
and I think that with situations like this, I feel like a lot of the stalking scenarios that I've heard personally, people are always like, well, I didn't want to go to the police because it's just a person. Like they became part of my life.
Yeah. I know him. He's not that type of person. He's not that individual.
Yeah. I mean, take a look, and if it's gotten, at least if you felt threatened, then you should get protection.
Yeah. Agreed.
That's all it is. Yep. Oh, well, there's that one, coffiners.
There's that one, coffiners. Yeah.
There's that one.
Happy Halloween.